Hey everybody, this is writing micro lesson number 9 on the checklist manifesto for Honors 111 in the civilization sequence of the Honors College at the University of Maine, and I'm the instructor, Rob Glover. So this isn't actually a substantive lecture in which you'd be presented with a new area of writing to focus on. What we're really doing in this last lesson is just kind of wrapping up and talking about where we go from here, what we do with all of these skills that we've been focusing on each week, and developing kind of a toolbox of ways to approach writing. So we'll start with a reminder of what we've done so far. So as I said at the outset of class, this series of assignments stems from a philosophy on writing, and we've all kind of adopted that philosophy on writing, where we're going to focus each week on a different skill. And remember that I mentioned this idea of a checklist manifesto stems from this book written by a cancer surgeon and public health researcher named Atul Gawande. And his idea was that any complex system, any complex process can be broken out into a more systematic and intentional set of steps. And so I said that's what we're going to bring to writing, is we're going to break this into a series of steps. So as a result, we focused on foundational skills and kind of broke them out 1 week at a time, focusing on things like crafting a thesis statement or using citations or your paragraph structure, right? And so you've been practicing those things, and your weekly assignments have been heavily weighted to focus strictly on those individual skills. And so you've been applying those skills, you've been putting them into practice, and you've been getting feedback from me. That's what we've been doing so far in the course. Now that enables us to kind of break out the different skills and assess where people's strengths and where people's weaknesses are. We all do certain things well. There's always things that we can do better. And we sometimes have to be systematic in figuring out, where is our strength, where is our weakness. So the next question is, where do we go from here? What's next? And the first step, I would say, at this point in the course, where you've been doing this for a number of weeks now, is really kind of a step back and some reflection. So sometimes I do this in my courses where I'll have a specific assignment where students aren't actually writing anything new. They're actually just kind of assessing their progress so far and reflecting on it a little bit. And I'm asking you to do this on your own. I don't want you to turn this in or write this up for me, but really this is for you. So I'd ask you to go back and review your performance on those weekly assignments and the first longer paper, and try to assess where are the areas in which my writing is pretty strong and I'm getting really good feedback, and then where are the areas in which there's potentially some weakness and I'm running into issues and I'm getting corrections on my papers, and just try and kind of figure out what those are, identify those. Then you can review some of that feedback as you need to. You can revisit some of the micro lessons that zero in on those specific skills, and really try to be intentional. Think about steps that you could take to strengthen your writing further in the areas where you've struggled. You don't necessarily have to go back into the areas in which you've done well, but if there's areas in which consistently each week you're getting comments on that aspect of your writing, or there's specific writing assignments for weeks in which the skill that we focused on you had some trouble with, think about that and think about how you could work to improve that. And if you want, this is up to you, this isn't required, but if you want to set up a time to chat about that, I'd be happy to do that. It can be with a concrete focus. You can say, I'd love to talk to you about how I can write better thesis statements, or it can just be more general, right? A more kind of general session, which we talk about your writing and some strategies to improve your writing. So I encourage you all to do that now that we've moved through these different skills, and I'm not going to be introducing any new skills at this point in the course. For your convenience, I've taken all of the micro lessons that you are accessing through Blackboard, and I put them together in a single playlist so that you can click on a single link and go to a playlist of all those different micro lessons. So if you want to access that, go into the weekly writing assignments folder on the course Blackboard page, And it'll be right there at the top. There'll be a link to that playlist, just so it's kind of easier access, and all of those materials are located in one place. So I encourage you to do that if there's individual lessons that you want to go back and look at. From here, we have this idea of the checklist manifesto, right? So writing is complex, it's multifaceted, and one of the ways in which we guard against the complexity, the errors or the missteps that can come with complexity, is by breaking it down into its constitutive parts. This is designed to systematize and regularize your approach to the task. It encourages intentionality, so you're thinking concretely with an intention about what you're doing, and forethought. You're kind of assessing what you're going to do beforehand. Application, you're putting this into practice, and then you're getting feedback and critique from me, and then you repeat that process, right? So the checklist manifesto can be applied in lots of different settings. The book itself, the philosophy itself, stems from things like engineering, flying airplanes, all sorts of different, really complex tasks. But here we're approaching this in relation to writing. And the argument in Checklist Manifesto is all of those tasks are facilitated. They're made more simple and easier and more systematic and kind of reliable. Our overall performance is made more reliable through the use of a checklist. And I have developed said checklist. Now I passed out a hard copy of this in class today, and all of you have this in paper form. This is also available on the course Blackboard site in the weekly writing assignments folder. But here you'll see what this checklist looks like. The left-hand side, you have these different writing skills that we've focused on, 8 altogether. And then on the right-hand side, you have the different components, the different things I was asking you to focus on each week. And so some of these you're probably doing really well, and you should be mindful of these different steps, but you don't necessarily have to devote a ton of energy to this if it's something that you're doing really, really well, right? But in areas in which you're struggling and you're consistently struggling, you really want to zero in on those areas and use the checklist ideally for all aspects of your writing, but areas in which you struggle, use this as a tool. Use this to try to improve your writing. And the assignments as you go forward, the remaining weekly writing assignments and the second longer paper that you're going to do, I really expect you to be using this checklist and focusing on these specific skills, because these are the areas in which I'm going to be grading you and assessing your performance. So hopefully this is a useful tool for you. Hopefully this takes that information that we've been building up incrementally over the course of the semester and kind of puts it right in front of your face, and you can refer to it easily. From this point on in the course, and I mentioned this in class, the writing is not going to focus on a specific skill. It's going to proceed more holistically, looking at the whole rather than the sum of its parts. I want to see assembly of these different components, integrating these different skills to inform the larger totality that is your essay, either these weekly essays or the second longer paper. And the checklist is a tool for this. A checklist is a tool to help you look at your writing and approach that writing with an eye towards the overall product. So think about how these different tools, these different skills that we've developed or honed can improve the overall quality and clarity and ultimately power of your writing. This is also a tool to guard against simple mistakes, simple errors. Try not to overlook things. Try to break bad habits. Don't have too much hubris when it comes to the writing process. Try to approach it with a little bit of humility and ensuring that you're being systematic and intentional about things you could potentially forget. And this is something I'm hoping that you'll take forward with you, that this will be an approach to argumentative and analytical writing throughout college and really becomes ingrained in how you approach the writing process. So that's the hope. I will say that this series of assignments is it's a pilot. I was doing different things with regard to writing. I read this one book, the Checklist Manifesto, and it really kind of seemed to me that some of those insights could be brought over into teaching, and in particular teaching about writing. And so I've tried to be way more intentional than I have in the past about the skills that I want students to learn, and how I try to create some space in the civilization sequence to teach those skills, where we're so pressed for time in the classroom discussing big blocks of texts in 2 class sessions. I've broken these out and created these lessons and try to essentially maneuver some space where students get writing instruction. With that said, given that you're part of this pilot project, I'd greatly appreciate any sort of feedback you might have, either positive or negative, and try to be constructive. If there's things that you think worked, I'd love to hear about them. If there's things that you didn't think work, if there's ways that you could imagine this assignment would be made better or more concrete and easy to understand, whatever issues you're having with the assignment, good or bad, I'd love to hear about them. So feel free to email me your feedback, or just come by and see me to chat. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. So that's going to wrap up this micro lesson, I guess, to the extent that it's a lesson. And this will be the last one for this semester. This will be the last time there's a video that is directly tied to a weekly assignment. You can refer back to this, and I encourage you to do so if you're kind of trying to remind yourself of what we're doing each week with the checklists moving forward. But I hope this has been helpful, and as I said, I'd appreciate any thoughts or feedback you have. Thanks a lot.